If you'd like to gain a little extra storage space, consider picking up an old wooden window frame without the glass. I'm flipping over the window frame facing it good side down, using 8 simple cup hooks from the dollar store that were previously spray painted with black. I am selecting 4 for the next step. I'm also using 2 hanging chains removed from dollar store wire baskets. Going by my penciled marks, I'm screwing a cup hook onto the window frame on each side. I'm now transferring the same hook placement measurement to the other short side of the window and screwing in 2 more cup hooks. I'm now documenting the measurements of the window hanging apparatus so I can transfer it to my desired hanging spot. You'll want to measure the middle of each side of the window as well as the full length from left to right. Choosing the spot on my ceiling, I'm transferring the measurements and screwing 2 cup hooks into the ceiling so I can hang my window frame up. If your ceiling isn't wood like mine, you will likely need to screw into ceiling studs or use anchors, depending on the weight. I'm now gathering up a few random hooks along with some rustic baskets for a starting point. Large S hooks are my favorite. However, I am also hanging up the decor in a few different ways. Another way is to loop some heavier rope together, then close the ends together with wrapped thinner twine. You can also screw cup hooks into the window frame for easier hanging too. I'm using a combination of all of the above plus more for a random rustic look. And you are left with a charming and rustic way to either add additional storage to your space or use it as a way to display your favorite collections. I hope this inspires you to consider picking up an old window frame, short ladder, or even a wooden shutter to create a kitchen ceiling display of your own.
And let's transform these basic wicker baskets into a vintage inspired look. First things first is you wipe the Vaseline all around the basket where you do not want the white paint to set. Once it has completely dried, wipe it with a wet cloth, and just like that, the paint should come off where the Vaseline was put on. Now that that's complete, let's create a 2-tiered basket hanger for your kitchen where you can put your fruit and other items. You simply wrap twine through the base basket and tie a knot. I did it in 3 different corners in a triangle, and just like that, you have created such a cute vintage inspired fruit hanging basket.
My neighbor had an old dresser across the street, but I knew I could fix it up, and the first thing I gotta do is get rid of all the rotted and torn up materials. Then I gotta take off all of the hardware and the doors on the bottom. I'm not gonna need those for the transformation I'm gonna make. I also want to get rid of the hardware on the drawers. Now on the top of this, it was pretty beat up. It had been out in the rain and the sun. So I started with 80 grit sandpaper and started going up and down. Once I got it all sanded off, I also needed to go with 120 up to 220. Now sanding produces a lot of dust. So the next thing I did was make sure I got my air hose out and got all the dust off. Got to make sure we get that cleaned as good as possible. Now I wanted to get rid of the railings that were on the bottom because I don't need those. I want an open concept. So I cut each one of those and pulled them apart. Next, I got some Lawan plywood. This is great for shelving. I wanted to put this on the bottom because it's also waterproof just in case anything spills on it. Once I get it in place, just some small staples will hold it exactly where I need it. Next, it was time to prep for painting. I'm going to fill all the holes from all the hinges and everything like that. And then it's time to go ahead and put the primer on. Primer always goes before paint. You need something to adhere it to the cabinet. The next step was to put some good high quality cabinet paint on there. Once that primer's done, you just go ahead and put all the paint on. This one took 3 coats. Next, it was time for staining. I wanted to add some shelves on the middle, and I wanted to go with a dark stain, so that's why I went with walnut. So I'm going to do all the boards for shelving and that Lawan plywood on the bottom. It's going to get some stain also because I want every one of them to match. Then it was time to do the top. Once it's all sanded down, I put the stain on there, and it took actually 2 coats of stain. You ever see that professional finish that gives it just a durable, clean look? Well, that's what this polyurethane is for. You put that on, and it's going to give it a nice, shiny look to it, and it's going to make it nice and durable. A couple of coats of those. Now it's time back for that middle shelf. I took those boards that I stained earlier, and I put them in place and used the food brad nails to hold them down. Now it's time for some new backing. I got some of that Lawan plywood extra hanging out, so I grabbed some of that and cut it to size. Again, some staples all the way around the edges will hold it in place. Now it's time to get some new hardware. This is really inexpensive and it changes the look, and it's black so it stands out. Now the drawers need some liners in there. because it's kind of rotted out, but it looks good. We're going to close that up. You remember that old dresser in the driveway? Now look at this. What a transformation. I love how it turned into this kitchen island buffet table. It just turned out absolutely amazing. There's no reason to throw an old piece of furniture out when you can look at it, use your imagination, and upcycle it into a work of art. I hope you enjoyed this project as much as I did, and I hope it inspired you to do your own upcycle project.
If you are short on kitchen storage space, here's a creative and functional way to increase it by going up. I'm choosing 3 like-minded reclaimed wood boards I have in my stash, setting them down side by side. Underneath the baskets, I'm penciling in another random edged side, which will become the bottom, then cutting the boards to size using a miter saw. Using a sander, I'm giving the fronts, sides, and ends of each board a light sanding. A cedar strip is being measured, then cut to the width of the 3 boards. I'm then using the cut piece to mark where to cut a second, so I end up with 2. The tops and sides of the wood strips are getting painted in coal black by Fusion Mineral Paint, so they coordinate with the baskets. Some cup hooks, also purchased from the dollar store, are being removed from the package, then pushed into some packing foam to create a stable surface. Using a black metal spray paint, the hooks are getting coated from all sides. While I'm waiting for the cup hooks to dry, I'm placing the painted wood strips across the 2 ends of the 3 wood planks, then penciling in 2 screw marks per board. With the wood strips placed on a scrap board, I'm pre-drilling pilot holes in each penciled area so the wood strips won't split when attaching with screws. Positioning the boards into place, I'm inserting short black screws into each hole, then screwing them in using short bursts with the cordless drill until they are just attached. After attaching the combined boards to a wall, I now have better ability to use a level to mount the baskets. I'm positioning the first basket near the bottom, screwing in 1 cup hook on the far right of the basket, then using a level to check for placement of the second cup hook. Now I'm positioning the top basket in place, this time poking hole placements with the hooks, then screwing them in with the guidance of a level. I'm now attaching the last 2 baskets, positioning them based on the space that's left. I found pinning the smaller baskets into place, leveling them, then poking placement holes with the cup hooks even easier. To chime in with the rustic wood theme, I'm choosing 2 stencils called pallet stamps and shipping crate stamps from Funky Junk's Old Sign Stencils that offer authentic pallet markings. I'm positioning each stencil image where desired, then stenciling them using coal black by Fusion Mineral Paint so the images mimic authentic pallet markings. To add interest to the baskets, I'm using a stencil and felt pen to design some paper labels with random numbers. You could also handwrite accurate dates on the labels. Then simply hang up the labels as desired, load up the baskets with your favorite produce, and enjoy your newly enhanced produce storage that is not only super productive, it looks cool too. I love the various sizes of the baskets, so you have the ability to load them up with just the right sized items to suit. And the crate markings on the wood really give this piece an authentic, interesting look, don't you think? This super functional and beautiful storage solution can also be used in a front entry, office, writing station for a kitchen, bathroom, workshop, or even a bedroom. I hope this inspires you to create a produce organizer of your own.
I had a friend give me an old cabinet, but I have some great ideas for it. First thing I'm going to do is get the drawer out, and I need to change the hardware. I'm also going to take the doors off because I want an open concept. I'm also going to take out the shelves on top. I want to make sure I get as much space as possible on top. Next, I take it outside. I'm going to go ahead and start sanding it with some 80 grit. I want to roughen up the sides. That way the primer sticks to it. What you see here is me spraying on some primer. Paint doesn't like to stick just directly to wood, so you got to prime it to give something for the paint to stick to. I'm going to go ahead and prime it all over except the very inside. 1 good coat will do the job. Now I'm going to switch over to some cabinet paint. Don't skimp on this. You want some good quality cabinet paint. Once you get that on, let it dry, and I'm going to put 3 coats on. That's going to make it really nice and durable. Once the paint is on, I'm going to switch over to some brick paneling. It's easy to cut. I'm going to mark it, and I'm going to start placing this on the inside of the top cabinet there. I can put it in place. I use some glue and some staples to hold it down. Once I get that in place, I'm going to cut out a little square. Now here's a surprise. I'm going to cut this out, And what I'm going to install once it's removed is an electrical box. I'm going to go ahead and wire up some switches and outlets. They're easy to do. I can just follow directions right off the internet. Once I get that light switch and that electrical box installed, I'm going to put a white cover. It kind of blends in with the cabinet top, and it's flat, and I use the box size to make it look really nice when it's put in place. Next, I put a outlet box on the top for a light. Look at that, it's looking really good, and I got this light off Amazon. Next, I'm gonna go back to the drawer and I'm gonna put on some good hardware. I got 3 coats on this door also, and it looks really good. Put that in place, and it's time to stick it inside. I'm gonna put a bulb in, and I got this cool neon coffee sign. I'm gonna set that up there. And then I'm also gonna go ahead to the Dollar Tree and buy some decor. All these mugs and baskets, and I'm gonna put my coffee maker in place. And look at this cool holder I got for all my pods. It's just great. Put that in place. It's gonna cover the switch, light up the neon sign, light up the light, and look at this. The great thing about this light cover is it's adjustable. Now it's time for some good old-fashioned hot chocolate. Once I get that all brewed up, oh, look how amazing this turned out. I took a 70-year-old cabinet, and with some love and some patience, I made it look great. And I love the industrial look, and I hope you do too, especially with that neon sign in the back. I think it turned out beautiful. I hope this inspired you to go ahead and upcycle old furniture as you see fit.
Start with 3 small handled trays and 2 strips of wood. Use hot glue to attach one of the trays to one of the wood strips so that the bottoms are all flush. Take the second tray and glue it to the other end of the wood strip. Center the third tray between the top and bottom trays. Glue the second wood strip in place. Now it's time to paint. Use spray paint to apply 2 to 3 coats to all sides of your stand. Add glass jars to the trays, and your storage stand is ready to use. You can fill it with dry goods like coffee, flour, and pasta for your kitchen counter. Decant snacks into the jars and keep in the pantry for easy access.
I was out looking through yard sales and I found this dresser. What I wanted to do was first make sure I brought it up to my level and get all the drawers out so it's easy to work with. Once all the drawers are out, I noticed it was really gross on the inside, and I took my air blower and got it all out. Also, the bottom was actually in rough shape. It had some duct tape, and the shelf was just made of this cardboard material, and I needed to get rid of that. Also, note that I didn't need the middle drawers. The first top one I'm going to keep, but the other ones I'm not. So I used my oscillating tool to take away the framing. Once I got that done though, the next step I wanted to do is take a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and I'm going to cut that and make my new shelf. That way it's stronger than the cardboard, and it looks good when it gets put in there. All I need to do is mark it off, use my skill saw, and get it cut just to the perfect length. Once I do that, I set it in place, and it looks great. Next step though is to go ahead and prime the whole project. You've got to put on a good primer. If I were to paint it, the paint could actually peel off. So I put this primer on. It's going to hide any stains and allow the paint to adhere really nice. Once I do that, then I also made sure I got the shelf in place with a few brad nails. The next step was to go ahead and put the paint on. Made sure that primer dried overnight, and then I used the paint, and it's a good quality cabinet paint. That's the key. Once I get that all on the sides and rolled on, I made sure I did 2 coats. Next, the perfect solution was to get the shutter out of the garbage can, and I cut it to size. And then I want to paint it. And it would have been a hassle to go ahead and brush it or roll it on, so I used spray paint. It goes on really nice, and it just takes 2 coats. The great thing about using spray paint is it's also an oil-based spray paint, and it gives such a nice satin finish to it. Once I get this side painted, I painted the other. And the great thing was I only needed actually 1 coat on the front of these drawers. I'm also going to put some new hardware on. That way it matches throughout. I'm actually going to put those poles on the front of the shutters along with new hinges, and I'm going to put those on also. Look at this. It's looking actually really good. Now I put some hooks on the side to hang my barbecue tools. Put that down. It's also great to put my wood chips in. I can seal those in the bottom. Anything that I want. Close those doors. They're out of sight. And I'm going to put a cutting board. And look at this. It actually turns out great. It's a side companion to my grill. I think it actually turned great. I don't think this thing could have turned out any better. Instead of throwing this old thing away that we found on the side of the road, we turned it into a beautiful, upcycled outdoor grilling station.
Don't throw away those water bottles. We're going to use them for a DIY. Start by placing some wax paper onto a tray. Place your water bottles onto the tray. Grab some tinfoil, wad it up in a ball, and place it on top of the water bottles. Grab some reusable wipes from the dollar store. Place some Elmer's glue into a bucket. Place your reusable cloths into the bucket, get them nice and wet with the glue, and then squeeze out the excess. Place the cloth over the top of each of the tinfoil coated water bottles. While those are drying, grab some felt and cut out some circle shapes. You'll need 2 for each water bottle. Once the ghosts are dry, remove the water bottle and tinfoil. Place your felt eyes onto the ghosts and hot glue them into place. Grab some rubbing alcohol and food coloring. Pour some rubbing alcohol into a bowl, add some drops of food coloring, and mix together. Place in a spray bottle and spray the bottoms of each of the ghosts. Wait for all of the food coloring to dry, and your ghosts are ready. You can place them anywhere in your home.
Take a piece of foam core board and macrame cord. Begin cutting longer strings of macrame cord and place the first piece in the middle using your hot glue. Work outward to the edges. Then trim the ends of the cord and outside edges of the foam core when done. Take a brush and begin unwinding the ends of the macrame cord until they are completely undone. Take black cardstock and a pencil, draw circles, and then cut them out and place them as eyes and mouths on top of the rope. There you have it, a cheap way to create your own easy DIY boho Halloween decor for your home for less than $5.
You're going to need a pumpkin bucket, a round party tablecloth, and an LED light. We're going to now take and place the light into the bucket. Then I'm going to open up this tablecloth. I'm going to place my pumpkin in the center here, and then I'm going to use the center. Then I'm going to take the handle and thread it through, and then I'm going to thread it back. So this ghost is now done. So here's the ghost hanging in the tree. You're going to need a foam head and some tulle. I'm going to go ahead and cut a hefty amount. What I have here is some athletic tape. Next, I'm going to place the fishing line, and I'm going to place the athletic tape over the top. So I'm going to open up the tulle. Now, one thing I need to do is get that fish line through so that the 2 pieces tie together. And I'm going to place my ghost up here, floating in this cool space. For this next ghost, we're going to be using a dollar store skeleton and a flour sack dish towel. Open up the flour sack towel and find the center of it and make a small hole, and I'm going to thread that elastic through the hole like so. So my skeleton ghost is now ready to be hung up. So I'm going to go ahead and hang it on a branch on this tree. Now, as kids approach my home on Halloween evening, they'll be able to walk up my walkway and see this light up ghost first hanging in the tree. As they continue to walk up the walkway, they'll see my skeleton ghost, as well as when my porch is lit up, they'll be able to see my styrofoam head ghost as well.
I was shopping in Dollar Tree the other day and I came across some mop heads in the cleaning aisle, and I'm just going to begin by unraveling the yarn pieces. I unraveled all the pieces, and then next I took this 16-ounce glass bottle with a lid, and I'm going to go ahead, take the lid off, and I'm going to take my mop head and open it up from the bottom, and I'm just going to hot glue this lid upside down onto that black piece. Once I have the lid glued on, I'm going to let it set for a good 5 minutes just to make sure the glue is fully in place and set. Then I'm going to take my bottle and I'm going to screw it back on. To make a cute little hat for my ghost, I'm going to take some black thick material and I'm just going to trace around a flower pot to cut out 2 circles. I do need one circle to be slightly smaller than the other circle. I'm going to glue around, and then I'm going to pull the bigger circle over top to have a more finished edge. Once I'm done with my circle, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back with the same black material, and I'm going to cut out a square that is 5 by 5 inches. So I'm just going to fold it in half and I'm going to glue it together with the right sides facing in, just down one side of the fabric. I'm going to flip it back inside right, and then I have a little cone shape. I'm going to cut out a circle directly in the middle of the hat. This circle we want to be big enough so that it fits over the top of the mop head. I'm going to take the cone part and I'm just going to glue that directly on top of the mop head. So 2 circles for the eyes and 1 circle for the mouth. For the other mop head, you do exactly the same process, repeating with this mop head style. You can fluff out these little pieces if you like. So here are my cute, adorable finished ghosts in my little Halloween display here, and I think these turned out so cute.
You're going to need some plastic tablecloth, pumpkin pails, and some tomato cages, and some lights. I'm going to start by placing the tomato cage upside down. With the part that sticks into the ground, I'm going to pull them all in together. Next, I'm going to take a pumpkin pail and place it upside down onto all of the prongs. Next, I'm going to take my lights and I'm going to use some painter's tape so that I can hold this in place at the top. But I'm going to wrap the lights around. Next, I'll be using a round plastic tablecloth from Dollar Tree. So now I need to make some eyes, and I'm going to be using some gaffer's tape here, and I've made a template out of a piece of paper. Here are all 3 ghosts lined up for the trick-or-treaters.
So to begin this project, I'm going to take the first big mixing bowl and I'm going to fill the bottom with the crinkle cut paper. And then I'm going to put in all of my little goodies that I bought for my children. I'm going to take a hot glue gun and I'm going to add just a little dot of hot glue on each side. I want to make sure that the kids can open this. And I'm going to take the top section here and add a ton of hot glue, and I'm going to put down the smaller scallop bowl on top of that. I actually discovered that maybe glue dots would work a little bit better just to keep this in place. And then I'm going to take the bunny ears, and then I'm going to take some customized ribbon that I made here, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick this in the middle.
First step is taking this white basket, spray painting it a soft brown. So now we're going to embellish the sides. So what I'm going to do is take this big yellow noodle and I'm going to stick it in the top and just draw where the noodle hits the basket. I'm going to cut half of this noodle. So on the basket, when I set this noodle in it, it just sits really nicely right there. I'm going to use some zip ties to attach the noodle on the inside. So I'm just going to wrap the whole noodle in this. The last thing we're going to add to this basket right up on top is a nice bow. Use some things as filler in the bottom. I'm going to put a box in there, some leftover packing paper. I'm going to fold that up and place it on top so you don't see all that packing paper.
I found these cute little Easter eggs at the dollar store. I'm going to use this glass cookie jar. I'm also going to grab an old vase. For my next egg project, the eggs I found have holes in both ends, so they're perfect for slipping the string through. Put it through the other end and then close up the egg. I'm going to keep adding eggs until I have it as long as I want it. For my third Easter egg project, I've grabbed a coat hanger and I'm going to bend it into the shape of an egg. I'm going to paint the top part white. I'm just going to add some hot glue to the hanger and hold the eggs in place. I'm going to add some of this Spanish moss. The final thing I have to do to finish my egg wreath is attach a bow.
Head to your local craft store and pick up some RIT dye. Take some burlap fabric, pre-wash the burlap in warm, sudsy water. Shake the liquid dye thoroughly, mix with 4 cups of hot tap water and add to your washing machine tub. Combine 1 cup of salt with 4 cups of hot water and add to the tub as well. Put your burlap fabric into the washing machine and set the machine to the hottest water temperature possible. You want the fabric to sit in the dye bath without any rinsing for at least 30 minutes and up to 60 minutes. Once the cycle is finished, rewash the fabric in warm, sudsy water. Now head to your front door. Take a suction hook and attach it to your door. Then attach the small clear command hooks to your door, one hook opposite the other, and creating a funnel-shaped grid. Take your burlap and draft the shape of a carrot on the floor in a zigzag pattern. Take rubber bands and twist them around the ends of each zigzag. Using the rubber bands, twist each one onto the command hooks on the door until you reach the bottom of the door. Grab a bunch of faux greenery. Hook the greenery bunch onto the suction hook behind the orange burlap fabric. Head to your favorite big box store and grab a tension rod. And while you are there, pick up a pool noodle. Lay the pool noodle flat on a table. Draw a straight line across the top of the noodle with a marker. Take a sharp pair of scissors and cut a slit through the entire side of the pool noodle using the line that you drew. Take the tension rod and push it through the cut and into the center of the noodle. Take faux floral stems in your favorite spring colors and cut the stems to about 1 inch below the bloom. Starting with your larger flowers, simply poke the short stems into the pool noodle. Add additional larger sized blooms as well as faux plant foliage. Start to fill in with smaller blooms as well as wandering flowers. Find some styrofoam Easter eggs on sticks. You can find these at the dollar store. Snap the wood stick a couple of inches below the egg and poke the egg into the pool noodle, and glue some solid colored plastic eggs to the pool noodle using a hot glue gun. Follow the instructions for your tension rod and adjust the length to fit between 2 cabinets in the kitchen above your sink.
Are you ready for a dollar store project you can leave up all spring? This little kit had a little bunny in it, so I just cut the ears off. hot glue those ears onto the top of the hat. I'm going to cut a large piece of blue ribbon. I'm going to hot glue it into place around the hat. Next, I'm going to take those fake flowers. I'm going to place some of those fake flowers on the top of the hat. I'm going to hot glue them all into place. Next, I'm going to punch out the face in the felt and place it on top of the hat. I'm going to take some of that leftover white felt and I'm going to cut 3 little fine strips. I'm going to place those as whiskers. So I'm going to place a long piece on the bottom of the bunny hat. I'm going to take a piece of the ribbon and now it's a bow. So I'm just simply going to take that elastic and hook it onto a magnetic hook.
I grabbed this container from the dollar store and a couple dowels from Walmart, and we're going to place them on either side. So in the middle of this dollar bucket is 1 brick of fluorofoam. You can also pick it up from the dollar store. And as you just saw me inflate this balloon using our Walmart balloon pump, that's where these big jumbo balloons came from as well. So we're going to place this between the 2 dowels, and then I'm going to place a piece of tape on either side. Now we have some of these adhesive tabs or just glue dots. I'm just going to place it on the back of a mini balloon, and we're just going to stick it right to the big balloon. So all I'm going to do is just take the assortment and place them throughout. Now I'm adding some fake grass from Walmart to the container, and now we can enhance our Easter baskets.
We're gonna grab 2 bowls of the same size. So what we're gonna do is put some hot glue on the 4 sides right there, bring the bowl over and set it right on top and hold it into place just enough for the glue to dry. We're gonna do the same thing here. Put it together. We're gonna go ahead and take this bunny. All we need is the ears on this. All I got was a little bit of fluorofoam, and we're gonna hot glue that on there also. We're gonna use these and we're gonna place it in there, and we're gonna take it outside, give it a nice paint job. What we're gonna do is grab a planter right along the edge, put some more hot glue, take it and set it right inside there. For our final step, I went ahead and put some gloves on just because we're gonna be dealing with some spray adhesive. Start laying it on just like this. We're gonna cover the whole project just like this. It's that spooky time of year again, and we're going to start with some hobby foam. The way to cut this foam is to run your blade down one side, turn it over, and we're going to go ahead and snap it, and then use the blade to cut the back side. And we're going to stack these 4 pieces up. It's time to put them together. So I use some good old construction adhesive and spread it out. Once you do got it spread, just stick that next piece on there and lightly tap it so it goes into place. And we're going to put some weight on there just to hold it together. Let that dry a couple hours. Now I'm going to grab some PVC pipe. I want to mark these down to 12 inches each. The way we're going to do this is a 12-inch piece and a 1.5-inch piece. Then we're going to take a PVC 90 degrees and we're going to put that on there. Once I got all these foam pieces built up, I took a little piece of plywood, put it on the back. Then I drilled some holes in the ends of these legs, use some screws to secure it down. Once we get that on there, and here's the head, a little extra foam I had, use some popsicle sticks and stick that right on there. Now I'm going to put those 90 degrees back on, put it together. Take it outside and it's time to paint it. I'm going to get this painted, maybe a couple of coats, make it look good. Once it's got all spray painted, I'm going to set it in place right by the front door. And I'm going to put a little couple googly eyes right on front. As it sits out there, it will greet each and every one of my trick-or-treaters that come up front.
We're going to start this project with a lot of room and some saran wrap. I'm essentially going to place the saran wrap around the top of my thigh, and I'm going to make my way around a couple of layers. I'm going to keep moving all the way down my leg to my heel, and then we're going to make sure that everything is smoothed out, and I'm just ripping it off. Now, like the saran wrap, we're going to be going around down my leg towards my heel with our duct tape. So now that I've covered my entire left leg, we're going to cut off the saran wrap. I'm going to be taking some scissors and I'm actually going to be cutting up the side of my cast, and then we are going to carefully remove it. So we're going to take our silver duct tape and we are going to repair the tear and just like go over it. And then from there, we are going to start filling the leg up with stuffing and pool noodles. So now that my leg is fully stuffed, we are going to be taking orange duct tape to add to this. And we are going to slide this over the leg all the way up, and then we are going to be applying a shoe. I hope you feel inspired to try this witch leg Halloween project. It's perfect for outdoors. You could put it in a bush or in an urn.
We are going to start off this craft by going to your local dollar store and grabbing 8 pool noodles. And now we're going to go inflate our ball. Go and take a piece of the tape, put it into a circle, and stick the 2 balls together. And just continue to tape these 2 together. Now we're going to go and measure on the pool noodles. And go and do this for all of the pool noodles. Now use a knife to go and cut a triangle into the piece, but it should have a bend to this after you're done, which you're going to go and take some of the tape and then tape it down so it's secured and is bending. Do this with every one of the pool noodles that you went and cut. Put 2 pieces on the end of each and every one of them. Now what you're going to do is go and secure it onto the ball. After you've figured out where this pool noodle is going to touch the ground, cut it and maybe leave yourself a couple of inches at each of them. Now you can go and cut them to pretty much the same size for the rest of them. Now onto the next step, which is going and putting stripes onto the legs. So now we're going to go and secure it onto the exercise ball. Use little tiny pieces of tape and tape the top, bottom, and all of the sides and really make sure they're secure. So I wanted to go and get this entire spider assembled before I went outside and spray painted anything on it. Now after this has dried, what you're going to do is you're going to go and paint on some eyes. This spider's first location is going to be a bush, but the nice thing about this spider is that you can go and move this pretty much anywhere.
Grab a couple plastic bowls from Dollar Tree. I'm using some really strong glue to attach 2 large bowls together and then 2 small bowls together. And then I'm going to place the small ones on top of the large ones, and we're going to start to get the shape of a rabbit. I picked up this foam kneeler from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to trace the shape of a bunny ear on this, and then I'm going to cut it out with a craft knife. To finish it off, I am going to glue the foam ears to the very top. Before moving on to the next step, I'm going to let all of this glue dry really well. Now to add some moss. I tried gluing this to these bowls a couple different ways, and the best way that I found is actually just using basic white glue. I'm painting it on with a paintbrush and then just adding the moss one section at a time. You can also use spray glue, which is kind of messy. You can also use hot glue, but it kind of hurts your fingers. This is going to hold up really well. Once I've got everything covered, I want to let this dry completely. Now, to give this kind of an even coloring, I'm going to take this outside and add a coat of green spray paint. This is just going to cover any of the gaps where you can still see the bowl, and it's going to give all the kind of moss the same color. Once all that spray paint is dry, I can give my Easter bunny a little bit of a haircut and trim off some of that extra moss. Now to finish this off, I'm going to wrap it with fairy lights. I'm going to take my whole Easter topiary and place it in a really heavy flower pot, tuck the fairy lights in the back, and I can put this on my front porch for Easter. Head to Dollar Tree and grab a couple foam kneelers and some spring floral items. I started by drawing a bunny onto a piece of cardstock, then I cut it out, and I'm going to just trace it onto this foam kneeler. I grabbed a craft knife. I want one with a little bit longer blade. You could also use a box cutter here. Once it's completely cut out, I can use the scissors to take off any of the extra rough edges around the sides. Now I'm going to stick a skewer into the bottom of the foam bunny, and I'm going to paint it. I chose a mixture of white and blue to get this really pastel spring color. I'm going to paint the front and the sides. Once it's dry, I'm going to add a little face using a Sharpie, and I just tied a cute bow and added a button to add to the front of the bunny. With the bunny done, I can assemble the planter. I'm filling the bottom with some rocks and some floral foam. This is going to be on my front porch and I don't want it to blow away, so I want the base to be really sturdy. Then I'm going to start with the bunny. It's on a skewer because I can stick it right into the floral foam and it's going to stay put. Then I'm going to add a variety of floral sprigs all around it. I'm choosing to put some grasses in the back and some blue and white flowers in the front. I really like these little Easter eggs on sticks. I can plop those in around, and this is perfect for spring and Easter. I made 2 in slightly different color schemes, and I can use them inside to decorate, or I can put them out on my front porch as an early sign of spring.
I hit the dollar store in order to get started with my Easter decorations. I had some pool noodles at home and I had an idea. I laid out my pool noodle and brought out some garland that I had purchased online. This garland served as the base, wrapping around the pool noodle several times. I then filled it in a bit more using the dollar store garland. My next step was to use the string of eggs and wrap those around as well. Following that, I ended up moving forward with the carrots, and then I used the ribbon in order to cover up any spots where I felt like there was just a little too much pool noodle showing through. And then I took it outside to set it in place. I set up the top garland by just using the hook that I have above my door and making sure that that was in place. For the side pieces though, I used a pretty cool little trick. I placed some Velcro command strips right along the side of my door frame, and then I placed a zip tie and then placed the other side of the Velcro right on top of that. So I had a holder. I found these Easter eggs. I grabbed several of them and decided that I would stack them together vertically. I needed to set about making holes in the eggs themselves. I tried using my drill, but every time I tried, I cracked through the egg. Then I had the idea to try to pinpoint some heat right onto the plastic surface. I grabbed my glue gun, turned it to high, and plugged it in. Once it was warm enough, I pressed the tip of the glue gun, not using any glue. Once I was able to get a hole started, then I was able to use my drill just to make it larger so that it would fit the size of my stand. As with most things, once I figured it out, the whole process got a lot quicker. I made the holes in the eggs so that they would all be sitting at slightly different angles. I wanted it to look kind of haphazard and fun, as opposed to straight up and down or all the eggs laying on their side. The great thing about using a stand like this is that the height is adjustable. So once I had 3 eggs in place, I just lowered the height of the stand, and that was all I really needed. I only wanted this stand to go to the end of the garland that I had made in a previous tutorial. Once my stand was ready, the next part was to just give it a little bit of flair. I did this just by adding a little bit of ribbon and something on the top to camouflage the top of the stand itself. At the bottom part of the stand, I cut a little piece of this AstroTurf, and that was all it took.
To start this project, you're going to need 2 garden kneeling pads from Dollar Tree. Next, I've got a brown paper bag that I had saved, and I'm going to flip it to the back side, and I'm going to build a template. So what I'm going to start doing is, obviously there is a line right down the center here, and you could use something different if you want, like a piece of paper, scrap paper, butcher paper, whatever you want. So next what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this rectangle out of the bag. Now I want to take and fold this in half. This way I can make sure that my template will be even on both sides. And now I'm just going to go ahead and kind of cut out the shape. And now I'm going to open it up, and you can see that I've made my template. So now I'm going to take my template and put it onto my garden mat. And then I'm going to go ahead and trace this onto the mat. Now that I've got the template traced, I can remove my template, and my shape is ready to go. Now it's time to cut our shape out. And you can use a scissors or maybe a big cooking scissors, a utility scissors. You can use a serrated knife. You can use a razor blade. I'm going to try using this serrated knife first. I've protected my surface, and this is not a knife that I cook with. This knife is actually from the dollar store as well, and I just use it for crafting. Now my shape is made, and if there's any pointy areas or areas you don't like, you can just take your scissors and just trim up those little edges to get them to smooth out, and just shape them that way. Or again, you could use a razor blade or something else of your choice. Now it's time to create the face. So I like using buttons, but you could also use markers or anything like that. So I'm just gonna add my little bunny face in here and put it where I want it to, and then we'll be gluing it on. Now I'm gonna hot glue them into place, and then I'll let them cool. Now, depending upon where you're placing your little bunnies will depend upon what kind of glue you'll want to use. So for example, sometimes hot glue doesn't work as well if you have major hot and cold temperature fluctuations. So you could use things like silicone, or you could use epoxy. But now I'm going to wait for this face to cool, and then we're going to talk about what's next. Now there's lots of ways you can use these. You could put magnets on the back of them and put them on your refrigerator. You can take a skewer and stick it into the foam and push it up and make it a stake for your yard. So I'm going to take some twine or jute, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to cut the end here. Next, I'm going to make a loop at the bottom. Now you can adjust this to as big or as little as you want. I'm gonna go ahead and flip the bunny over. I'm gonna be placing it right here. I'm gonna add a little hot glue here, and then I'm gonna place the twine in the hot glue, waiting for that to cool because I'm gonna be hanging mine. So I'm hanging the bunnies on my garland hooks that I use in the winter. And this is where they'll hang. I hope this inspires you to make some bunnies of your own. Thanks for watching Hometalk, and I'll see you next time.